Does anybody else ever find that when Green Bay plays the Lions, they hope the Packers win, they hope it all goes our way, but Jamal Williams can still run for like a gazillion yards because you just kind of miss him and like him? Yeah, me too. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I am your host, John Delray. Today, we're getting ready for Packers versus Lions. That's right, a win and you're in scenario for the Green Bay Packers. However, for the Detroit Lions, still a very meaningful game. We'll see just how meaningful it is for them when we get to kickoff. But basically, for the Lions to make the playoffs, they have to win against the Packers and have the Seahawks lose. Now, what's interesting here, and what a lot of fans from a lot of different teams have been complaining about, is the fact that the Lions and Seahawks aren't playing at the same time. So, if the Seahawks win against the Rams on Sunday, the Lions are automatically out. But we will see how this all turns out. Lions have got to win. Seahawks to lose to make it in. Packers just got to win. Just win, baby. And then you're in the playoffs following this miraculous Run the Table Part 2 for the Green Bay Packers. So today I'm going to be going over who are these Detroit Lions, who are these people from Detroit. Yes, the Green Bay Packers played them once already this year in a 15-9 goofy, ugly, terrible football game that occurred earlier this season. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Going to talk about what's going on with the Detroit team. How have they changed since Week 9? How have the Packers changed? I mean, these are two teams that have changed rather dramatically and have certainly turned around their fortunes this season. Also, before I even get to the injury report, because that's what I'm going to cover next, I'm going to say this. I'm just going to get it out of the way right away. The Bears and their fans, I respect because there's so much history, right? There's the rivalry, there's the Bears dating back 100 years. There's just so much there. And then Detroit. I'm actually, dare I say, a small fan of Detroit. Of course, the Packers are number one. Don't get me wrong. Don't be like that. But what I am saying is, I really respect the Detroit Lions. They almost remind me of what a lot of people like to root for with the Chicago Cubs when they were the lovable losers. And don't get me wrong, Detroit fans, this year, you're not. So, I like Detroit. They've got a ton of history on their side, too. It is a rivalry between Packers and Lions, even if it has been one-sided for 30 years now. And then there's the people from Minnesota, but nobody likes them, so it's fine. But moving on to the injury report. I mentioned the other day that there was a practice squad member of the Green Bay Packers. No details were put out there, but they needed an ambulance to the practice center. Turns out we actually know who that player was. It was practice squad edge player DQ Thomas, who fractured his femur. Matt LaFleur acknowledged in his press conference today. Certainly best wishes to DQ as he gets over what is sure to be a very difficult injury and rehab process. Now, for the Green Bay Packers, in terms of their actual 53, this is a remarkably healthy team for Week 18. Now, this team really only has, I think, 4 members on injured reserve. Eric Stokes, Rashawn Gary, obviously being the two biggest names of the bunch. But then you go beyond that, and the 53 only has one player who's questionable, and that's Josiah DeGuara. And even he's doing a little bit better than what everybody thought, because in the pre-practice press conference today, Matt LaFleur said that he just doesn't have high hopes for DeGuara. That he did seem very pessimistic when talking about Josiah DeGuara and the calf injury. And then DeGuara went out and practiced today and got the questionable tag, which, given that he got at least a limited practice in today, kind of leads you to believe that he very well might be out there on Sunday in spite of coach's pessimism in his press conference. So maybe DeGuara is doing better than the Packers originally thought. But that's it. That's all the injuries the Green Bay Packers have across their 53. Everyone else today, everyone else who's been banged up, bruised, everyone else who's gotten limited tags as of recent, they're all good. They didn't even get a questionable tag put on them. They're ready. Remarkably healthy team for Week 18. For a team that's hitting not only its performance peak, but quite possibly its health peak. Good things are brewing for the good people of Green Bay. Now you look over to Detroit, and it's still a pretty healthy team for Week 18, just not as much as the Green Bay Packers. They've got 6 players that received injury designations. Owasaka, I think that's how you say that, the guard, he is out. Beyond that, though, they have 5 questionable players. Now, one of them would be Michael Brockers, the massive defensive tackle, who's only played in a few games this year. He's questionable. Jason Sabita, their fullback, is questionable. Deshaun Elliott, their safety, is questionable. I've seen a lot of Packer fans not care that he may play, and I think that that's a misstep. It's a very talented young player for Detroit who they're hoping to have back. Then you have Jeff Okudah, their cornerback, he's questionable. And then Frank Ragnow, their center, is also questionable. And that, out of the 5 injuries listed for Detroit, is perhaps the most impactful on the game. Now, going on beyond that, who are these people from Detroit? What does this matchup look like? Well, for one, the weather. We know it's going to be Sunday night football. No matter how you feel about that, the game is happening in Lambeau Field on Sunday night. And the anticipated weather looks fairly okay for January. It's going to be in the mid-20s, kind of overcast, not overly sunny. That's the most recent weather reports I could find. And really, I'm not sure that weather has tremendous bearing on this game. I thought Jamal Williams, given the whole cleat gate and flagging the field, all the crap that came from last week when the Packers absolutely destroyed the Vikings, I thought Jamal Williams, when he was asked about it, had the most astute answer. And I will say, too, one addendum to a video that I put out recently, I talked about how some in Minnesota, there was a conspiracy theory that the Packers flooded the field, that the Vikings weren't well equipped with the right cleats. As it turns out, the coaches have been consistent all week. I mean, as we've gotten more quotes and everything in saying that the Vikings coaches and equipment managers, they told the players that they should wear cleats more suited for the field conditions, and then the players just didn't. So, yeah. But Jamal Williams had the best answer about this, and he said, don't get cute. Too many players are focused on being cute. You're going to put on those deep studs. You're going to put on those cleats, and don't be cute. Just go out there and play. Now, Jamal Williams sounds like a guy who's going to tell the rest of the Lions, hey, y'all, playing in Lambeau in January, while it is one of the best fields, pure fields in the NFL, it's January in Wisconsin, and we've had negative 40 weather and 40-degree weather, and that causes moisture. So be ready, wear your stuff. So the only impact on the game may be just that. The fact that it's mid-20s, the fact that it's a little on the warmer side, you could argue, depending on where in the 20s it falls, and what that's going to do to the field. In terms of who they're coached by, yeah, that's the knee-biter himself, Dan Campbell. Detroit Lions record this year is 8-8. They are 5-4 at home, 3-4 on the road. And this is a team that does perform better at home, and it goes deeper than just their record. For instance, their quarterback, Jared Goff, may be the most telling here. 80% of his touchdown passes have been at home, while 57% of the interceptions that he's thrown this year have happened on the road. Yes, 80% of his touchdown passes have occurred in Detroit this year. This is not the same quarterback at home and on the road. And there's a lot more about Jared Goff that I'm going to talk about shortly. So I mentioned already that the last time that these two teams played, it was just this ugly game, occurred on November 6th, 15-9. Detroit Lions won the game. The stats of note here, Jamal Williams carried the ball 24 times, and in spite of that, he averaged under 4 yards per carry in that game. For the Green Bay Packers side running the ball, it was one of those immensely frustrating games where even against the Detroit Lions defense, which I'm going to talk about quite a bit because it's gotten better, but back then they weren't better, and Aaron Jones still only ran the ball 9 times. The Packers could not move the ball at all. Aaron Rodgers came as close to he's had in a 300-game year, but he still threw 3 picks. Like, this was just an ugly game for the Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson had not ascended to his throne of best rookie ever by this point when he had 2 catches for 24 yards against Detroit. This was an ugly, frustrating game. And we're going to have to see, is history going to repeat itself? Given the trajectory of these two teams since, I doubt it. I really, really doubt it. What's different now for Detroit? Well, since week 9, the Lions are 6-2, 4th in DVOA offensively, 2nd in total points, and 3rd in point differential. This is a high-powered offense. Now, they did have a midseason lull, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. But this is no joke of an offense. It is one of the elite offenses in the league, and it's time that they're recognized as such. You know, early on in the year, from weeks 1 to 4, and they played some legit defenses, including the Philadelphia Eagles. But in weeks 1 through 4, the Detroit Lions averaged 35 points per game. Now, the weeks after that, they did get shut out once. They put up 6 once. So they've got these low-scoring games that have pulled down all of their averages. But from 1 to 4, averaging 35 points per game. Now, since week 9 until current, they're averaging 31 points per game. So yes, they had a midseason lull, but ultimately, man, oh man, this is a good offense, and they put up points at will when it is functioning well. Besides that, what else is different about the Lions team since the last time these two teams faced off? Well, on the offensive side of the ball, their first-round pick, Jameson Williams, he's back. Now, they are not trusting him with much yet. He's not doing a lot in the offense, but still, his speed and receiving ability can be used when the Lions think that it's a good fit in the game plan, something the Packers at least have to be prepared for as he is now playing. On the defensive side of the ball, 6th-round pick and absolute revelation for the Detroit Lions pass rush, James Houston. He's now out there as well. This is only going to be his 7th game played of the year, and the man already has 8 sacks. We're going to be talking more about him later. So Detroit on the offensive side of the ball, like I said, this is a very high-powered group. In spite of that mid-season lull, they're putting up 27.1 points per game on the season. That's 5th in the NFL. Running the ball, they're getting 129.7 yards per game on the ground. That's 11th in the NFL. And passing is even more impressive. They're getting 253.9 yards per game throwing the ball. That's 8th in the NFL. Per PFF, their highest graded individual player on offense would be Amon-Ra St. Brown, their number 1 wide receiver, with a grade of 90.7. Woo! Yeah, he is elite. And then second place would be Penei Sewell, their tackle, who predominantly plays right tackle with a grade of 80.3. Overall, like I already said, this is a very high-powered unit. It also happens to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, really enhanced all the more if Frank Ragnow, their center, is able to play. But this is also a team that just finds a way to get it done. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, despite how good he's been, is not Calvin Johnson in his prime. Jared Goff is not Matthew Stafford. And Jamal Williams, love him, he's not Barry Sanders. These are not the historic Detroit Lions. What this is a team that finds a way to get it done and uses every personnel member at their disposal. In terms of their tight ends, they've had multiple tight ends going down the depth chart get multi-touchdown games this year, including Shane Zylstra, amongst others. Jamal Williams has had several multi-touchdown games himself this year, really serving as their de facto lead back, as DeAndre Swift has had health problems, injuries all throughout the year. This is a team that, without even a single superstar, finds a way to consistently put up points with the best of them in the NFL, and a lot of it comes from one of the league's best offensive lines. Now, for everything that I've said about offense, take it, flip it, reverse it, and you have the Detroit Lions defense. Now, like I said, this defense has gotten better as of recent, but this is still not a good defensive unit. Here is the raw numbers. In terms of point per game, they're giving up 25.7 points per game. That's tied for 30th in the NFL. Yeah, that's bad. In terms of rushing, they're giving up 149.2 yards per game on the ground. 150 yards per game on the ground. That is 29th in the NFL. The Green Bay Packers run defense has been much maligned. We've talked about how terrible it is all year. Well, they're giving up 141 yards. Detroit's worse than Green Bay. In terms of passing, the Detroit Lions are giving up 249.4 yards per game through the air per game. That is 30th in the NFL. woof, y'all. But this Detroit Lions defense, it is bad. It's bad. Now, as of recent, it's been better, going against the Carolina Panthers being the single exception against that. But within recent weeks, I mean, they've held the Vikings to 23, they've held the Bears to 10, they've held the Jaguars to 14. And each one of those offenses have had games this year where they absolutely have gone off. I mean, the Jaguars are not the same old Jaguars. The Bears have had games where Justin Fields has run like nuts, and the Bears have put up points. So these are still accomplishments for the Detroit defense, and it has been better as of recent. Aiden Hutchinson is playing like a premier draft pick, no doubt about it. James Houston, a 6th-round draft pick, is playing out of his mind as of late, getting 8 sacks in 6 games to this point. So, is this unit as completely incompetent as the raw numbers would have you believe? At this time, no. However, are they still a bad defense? Yes. So what are the key matchups to this game? Well, number 1, can the Packers secondary continue its reclamation and once again control Jared Goff and Detroit's air attack? I've spent time talking about how good Detroit is at passing the football. Well, in the previous matchup, Goff only threw for 137 yards, one of his absolute lowest totals of the year. And that was when the secondary was completely and utterly broken and the defense was lost. So are they going to have the same effect on Goff this time in more favorable conditions, considering that Goff is now on the road and in cold weather? You know, and the other thing about Jared Goff is it's pretty clear when you look over the numbers, he's got a pretty big split compared to when he's going against a good pass defense and a bad pass defense. He seems to play to the level of his opponent. If he's going against a bad defense, he will put up great numbers. If he's going against a good defense, he's in trouble. Now, examples of that, the bad defense being the Vikings and Bears. They've been some of Goff's most efficient games of the year. Going against good defense, he goes against the Patriots, he goes against the Cowboys, he throws multiple interceptions and has some of his worst completion percentages of the year. Green Bay, in terms of the raw numbers, even as they've been broken throughout the year, has consistently, at least in yards per game and touchdowns, been one of the elite pass defenses in the NFL. Now, add in the fact that they seem to have fixed, since the second half in Miami, all of their communication issues, and now they've become just turnover mavens back there. Which Jared Goff is going to show up, and which Packers secondary is going to show up. Number 2, which offensive line is going to prove stronger in this game? According to PFF, the Green Bay Packers have the 3rd best offensive line in football as of right this second. The Detroit Lions have 8th. Now that 8th is assuming that Ragnow plays. And here's a nice little nugget that really does a job showing how commendable that offensive line has been this year for Detroit. Well, over the season, the line ranks 5th in PFF run blocking grade and generates 1.6 yards before contact per carry. That has been a massive part of Jamal Williams' resurgence this year. The fact that he can actually get momentum and get going before taking contact has been a very big part of his game. Which offensive line in this game will prove healthier, will prove stronger, and will protect their quarterback better? This is a game that could come down to the trenches. Number 3, which Green Bay offense is going to show up? Are we going to get the all gas, no break, hot piss offense of the version of the offense? Or are we going to get the broken, why does Matt LaFleur hate Aaron Jones version of the offense? Because we've seen the Jekyll and Hyde this year. So in the most important game of the season, at home, in prime time, I know which way my gut tells me which one's going to show up. But the truth is, we have to acknowledge that the Green Bay Packers offense has been wildly inconsistent this year. And Detroit's defense, while being horrible, has been playing better than they did in Week 9. And in Week 9, they still completely controlled the Green Bay offense. So, again, which one will show up? It'll determine the game. Last matchup, number 4. And this one actually comes from a tweet from Mina Kimes. She said she found this incredibly interesting split in Green Bay's run defense. We know Detroit can run the ball incredibly well with Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, But Green Bay's run defense has been awful. We know that. But is it always awful? She found this incredibly interesting split. She said against zone runs, the Green Bay Packers are 5th in the NFL in yards per carry. However, against power and counter runs, they're 29th. You can be sure that Dan Campbell, Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, they have taken note of that split. Now, with Devondre Campbell, with Quay Walker's rapidly improving play, are they going to be that bad against powers and counters? Again, this is one of the matchups that will determine the game. So ultimately, how do I see this going? Look, regardless of what happens in the Seahawks and Rams game, we know that the Lions are going to come out and fight hard. We know that. This is a Dan Campbell-led team. They're going to fight hard, and they're going to fight until the last second, regardless of what their playoff chances are. Even last year, look, Detroit had no shot all year long at the playoffs last year, and they played hard until the final whistle every game. This is what they do. The Green Bay Packers have fought through all of their adversity this year and have come out on the other side, but at times when they've gotten punched in the mouth, they've shut down, and we know it. We can say it. Ultimately, though, I think the Packers are just flying too high right now. Too many stars have aligned for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers to wind up in this position to potentially make the playoffs. The Lions, frankly, may be a team that's better put together. It may be a team that is more cohesive, all on the same page, more than the Green Bay Packers are. It's entirely possible. But at the end of the day, this Packers team has come together. And we know they are vastly more talented than the Detroit Lions. So, Packers take it 28-22. And that means next week we continue seeing each other because it's going to be time for playoff football. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I hope you had a great time. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hit like, share, subscribe, spread it around. Let's get some new subscribers as we make a playoff push here in Packerland. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you had a great day today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And Sunday night, Sunday night, I will be back, yes, very late after the game Sunday night. I'll do a quick instant reaction video that will see me either sad about the playoffs or thrilled. So tune in either way. I promise to be emotional. So Sunday night, I will be here. Until then, hope you absolutely enjoy everything you've got going on. And I will see you then. And as always, go Pack Go.